Hi, thanks for being here, everyone. Just to add one thing, when Ben was kind of teeing up the overview, one thing that at TomTom we always try to add to our conversations like this are how can this regular community members be a part of these conversations and how can they help press solutions forward. So as we talk about solutions in the space, one thing that I would just love to hear your ideas about are how can just like regular parents and community members help.
Yeah, absolutely. For the introductions portion, I'm going to paste just a list of names of everyone that's here alphabetically. I hope that's all right with everyone, and maybe we can just follow that order. If you wouldn't mind taking just 2 or 3 minutes, it's okay if this takes 20 or 30 in total, but just to introduce yourself, what you do, and then maybe share a little bit about what's changed. We like the rose and thorn format, if you're familiar with that, if you'd like to use that. If you just want to share more generally too, that's great as well. So Meredith, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Meredith Barros. I'm our student support and program manager and design program manager at Youth for Sonola in New Orleans. We are an intermediary organization. We're an education, civic, and business collaborative that prepares New Orleans public school students for sustained pursuit of high-wage, high-demand jobs and facilitates systems change to ensure sustained success. Some things that we've had a lot of changes, and like everybody has in the past couple of months, particularly upcoming, we have an internship program that we usually run for 250 students, where we do 4 weeks of soft skills training and 5 weeks of job placement with about 150 employers that we work with locally. And obviously they're not going to be going into job placements. We really wanted to keep our internship program up and running though. We think it's very important to be able to especially have that soft skills training and then get that work-based learning experience for them. So for us, we've pivoted towards online programming. And for that particular program, we're doing about half the size. And we're working on all virtual. We're going to do all of our training virtual, and then we're going to work with local training providers, which are our partners who work on career technical education with our kids. So they'll be working with them on consultancies, and then again with about 30 employer partners that decided that they would be able to do virtual mentoring and have work for them as well. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too much. This is just about how our work has changed, right? Right now? Okay. We have a few other programs. We had a very big career expo 2 days before we got, or maybe about a week before where we had stay-at-home orders for New Orleans, where we were supposed to have 2,500 students and 500 vendors come talk to 9th graders about different STEM careers that we made the last minute decision to cancel. And we were upset at first, but very happy that we did, as that would have been something that we would not have been happy to have been putting on a large scale event like that. But so we're trying to kind of figure out in the upcoming year, that's a yearly event we do. If things are like this next year, how can we do that? We have another 13th year bridge program for students that have just graduated high school as a gap year for technical skills. And so we're working on making that virtual in the fall as well. And we also do virtual learning for teachers. So we're just getting everything online as much as we can.
Hillary?
Hi, my name is Hillary Beard, and I am independently employed. I educate people through writing, speaking, training, and coaching. I am working differently in that it's not new for me to be able to work from home. However, I am taking advantage of the privilege that I have to hunker down, wear a mask, wash my hands, and not touch my face, and still earn an income. I am engaging in an enormous amount of self-care to keep myself elevated above survival level thinking and to so that I can instead identify ways to leverage the chaos and disruption of the moment to create a more equitable society. I also think that it is revolutionary for me as a Black woman to dream into a new society at a time when this virus is writing the lines of structurally racist policies and practices in this society and heading right toward me and sitting in the communities of Black and brown and low income white people. So I want to name that. So I'm trying to create a measure of justice for that privilege that I have even as a Black woman by also doing a tremendous amount of emotional labor. I have a background as a health writer, among other things. And so I've activated that, and I have been bringing to my Facebook community weekly Facebook Lives where I'm sharing with them the resources that I have access to as a health writer to help people educate themselves about the virus at a much higher level and in a different way than it's happening in the media. So that they can protect themselves and their loved ones. It's a conversation that's centered in the Black and brown experience, so that we can not just survive this epidemic, but come out better. And so I'm doing that as a series of Facebook Lives weekly. I do racial equity, diversity, and inclusion coaching, and I have been coaching a handful of leaders in education nationwide to support them in rising above survival level thinking in the chaos of this moment so they can make decisions that center the needs of vulnerable children, educators, and communities and make very difficult decisions about resources as we now prepare for an increasingly unstable future. And I'm partnering with people who share my vision.
Sherry?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sherry Bryant. I am a social studies educator at Buford Middle School here in Charlottesville. Rose and thorns. I'd have to say there are a considerable amount of thorns compared to roses, but one rose, I suppose, is with some of my students who are maybe more hesitant to reach out in everyday normal school. They kind of have a direct link to me via email, a number of other online programs that we use, and our numerous Google Meet sessions we have a week. So I'm getting to hear from kids that I didn't previously hear from a lot. The thorn, a little bit more of a problem here, is that some of our communities that Hillary was talking about who perhaps didn't have access to resources before, we're seeing those situations be exacerbated. So these equity problems are really coming to the fore. A lot of those kids don't have access to the same resources. So we're trying to figure out as a division, as teachers, as just people, like how to kind of fix that right now.
Mary?
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of City of Promise in Charlottesville. And we are a neighborhood-based cradle to career organization, catalyst for community change and conduit through which other agency partners reach the low-income neighborhood that we serve. And the roses, I have kind of two roses. One is that people are throwing money at me. Donors are throwing money at me, and this is very much like after August 12th, 2017, where sort of the heightened awareness of inequity in Charlottesville, people's hearts are burdened by it, and so people want to invest in what we're doing, both in immediate emergency services type funding that's restricted for COVID response, but also in some more long-term visionary things that are going to disrupt the system, the negative systems. So I find that really overwhelming and humbling and amazing. Another rose, which could be viewed as a thorn, but it's not, it's just the way the situation is exposing all of the inequity that organizations like mine fight every single day. the digital divide being one of those. And so I just think that some of the things that the school system in particular has been able to accept around a lack of technology and access to technology and internet and computer literacy, like all of that is going to, I feel, be really addressed in ways that it hasn't been forced to be addressed before. I think my biggest thorn, honestly, is caring for my staff, 2 of whom have children of their own, and having them continue to try to reframe what was normally a very hands-on, on the street, face-to-face engagement with our neighbors, and now have it be virtual with a kid on your lap, and they're under a ton of stress. And I'm an empty nester, and so I'm like, go, 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 push hard, be resilient. Like we tell our neighborhood, you got to be resilient all the time. And now it's our turn to do that. So balancing my desire for us to be as strong as we can be in this moment with the reality that my staff is facing and the uncertainty that they face as parents has been a challenge. And then I think the other thorn is just the disengagement that we are facing with the parents of the children that we're trying to serve virtually. We have found that where the parents are strongly engaged, the children are also engaged. Where the parents don't force their kids to get online and get with their teacher or get with their pathway coach, the kids don't do it. And so that's just sort of risen up as something else we've got to address really strongly as an organization going forward, is parent buy-in.
Hi, my name is Dwanisha Clark. I serve as Chief of Staff at Teach for America in our DC region. I've been on staff at Teach for America for almost 8 years in 2 weeks. And so we are navigating a multitude of the things that you all have talked about, along with facing the realities that I think many of us who come from the communities, myself included, my entire family is in New York City. In Harlem specifically, engaging with the realities of COVID-19 now being something that is not only impacting low-income communities like the one I come from, but also affluent communities, and reckoning with who gets services first in spaces like that. Our teacher recruitment program at Teach for America has gone completely virtual. And so we are diving into the reality of training educators in a virtual environment. Acknowledging the limitations of that, namely being in front of children and needing to make sure that children and teachers have access to each other and the resources that they need. I lead a staff of 20, 5 of which are moms, all 5 of them on my senior leadership team. And so the reality of us being able to get work done fast is not real or present. But something that we've been looking to decenter for a really long time anyway. I think something I've been pushing my team to acknowledge is that COVID has only brought to light the things we've been needing to deal with for a very long time. I think we see that along the lines of issues of inequity. We see that in the ways we treat each other at work, and the assumptions that we make about people and the way that they live their lives. I've also seen that play out with students in the ways that we are supporting our teachers to support their students, namely students in DC and Prince George's County in Northern Virginia who are in multi-generational households. Some may be being raised by elderly parents or relatives. So it's not as simple as logging on to Zoom when the digital divide, as someone else mentioned, existed prior to COVID-19. So the reality of a grandmother or a grandfather holding 16 different passwords so that their children can learn throughout the day is just not very real for us right now. And so we're balancing that, but also the experiences of staff members, what it means in an environment where many of our regions across the nation have not had their annual galas. And so the reality of raising money is stark right now. And so I would say we're dealing with the realities that all of you all are dealing with, and probably some that you are not, given our context, and trying to approach them as people-centered as we can, while recognizing the limitations of being in a virtual environment, but working in a people-centered field. And so it's been rough, and we're taking it day by day, but glad to be here with you all.
Daniel, are you here? Daniel, you're on mute.
Hi, sorry. So I realized that I was Zooming with my friends the other day, and my name is Money D on the Zoom call right now.
You're back on mute, Daniel.
Gosh, I keep muting and unmuting. Okay, I'm on my phone, which is another thing. It's a lot going on. So I'm just honored to be here with the people that I've heard so far. Meredith, it sounds like you have a really great program in New Orleans. My dad's from the Ninth Ward, so I've been down in New Orleans a lot. And we also have a similar program called KYIP, which is the Community Attention Youth Internship Program that has a very similar vibe of soft skills in the beginning and then technical training and getting people into jobs afterwards. So I'd love to connect with you offline and just kind of hear more about the ways in which your program is going, because we also had to shift our program onto being an online service. So yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And it's just amazing. There's just a lot of really great people here. Right now, I am, speaking of my job changing, I'm at Loaves and Fishes stacking cans. And so I'm here mostly helping with kind of the basic needs of the families inside of our communities. A lot of people that Mary Coleman was talking about will use Loaves and Fishes or get food delivered from us just in bags that kind of help with once a month, like almost 14 days of groceries that allows for people to still have the food and the nutrients that they need in order to survive. And so, yeah, so this happens. I get to do this once a week. I come in for a day and just kind of stack around, 100 or so bags to give out to families. And that was definitely not a part of my job in the beginning. I served on the board here, but it wasn't really, it was more like committee meetings and stuff. It didn't have to do with the actual coming into coming in and doing regular volunteering once a week. So that's been going on. All of my services that I used to do in person, I'm now transitioning them into virtual mentorship and everything. So during the KYIP program, I do have a summertime where we get together, and we've made a documentary the past 2 years. So that documentary has been really focused on Black male achievement and what it means for young Black men to succeed. The first year, we interviewed older Black men to talk about their experiences and how they became successful, if you will. And then the second year, we had the kids talk about their own experiences and things that basically changing the narrative by having them express their own ideas and say, you may view me as a basketball player, but I also actually play the trumpet. Or you may view the work that I do in a singular fashion and maybe only see me as a stereotype, but I'm so much more than that. And so that was last year's documentary. Both of them have been in multiple film festivals. And that's kind of a bigger project that I do during the summertime. I've also done work I'm a president of the 100 Black Men, which is a local organization that does mentorship work with young Black men in the community. And I am on the equity committee for UVA. And with that, I know Mary and I had talked before during one of those equity committee meetings. I don't even know. Mary, we're in so many different youth equity meetings. But so we had talked before about like what are ways in which we can, as someone mentioned before, use this opportunity where it's exposing a lot of the inequities that people have been talking about for a while. How can we use this as an opportunity to actually change the world that we're going back into, this new normal? Can it be more equitable, and how can we make sure that we are reshaping our systems into doing that? I do think that Charlottesville City Schools has done a great job in giving people, all of their kids, Chromebooks as well as hotspots if they need them in order to access the internet. And so there's been a lot of big changes in that way that I've been excited to see. So yeah, so I've been doing that. I've been answering the hotline, which is basically people are calling in. It just closed down because we ran out of money, but we're fundraising to get more money to open it back up. But basically a hotline is people will call in and they have issues. Some maybe like the government stimulus didn't come to them, or they basically just need money faster than what they can get it, and they've been laid off. So around 20 hours a week, I was answering phone calls from the hotline, talking to people about ways in which we could get them more money and more help during the time that they really needed it, focusing on like groceries or rent or whatever it is that's kind of helping them to stay alive. So yeah, so those are mostly the work that's most of the work that I've been doing, kind of focusing on more of the basic needs that I haven't before, and trying to do that in an equitable way and really share with the people that I'm working with, just sharing the resources. As someone mentioned before, being a Black person through all of this has been pretty challenging, not just for the communities that obviously have been hit harder due to the past inequities that have been just exasperated by this, but also, I mean, thinking about every day, it feels like there's another Black person that has been killed, whether it was Brianna, who just recently killed, or if it was Ahmaud Avery. We had a run for him on Friday and Saturday of last week. And so it's like still having to organize and still having to protest and fight for your right to exist as a human on top of like COVID-19 and everything else that's going on can be really draining and really challenging. But I know also it's something that we need to do, and it's something that like it's a part of our daily lives that doesn't change just because of a pandemic. In fact, it oftentimes gets worse. So yes, I think that spoke enough. I'm very happy to be with you all. Thank you all just for being here and all the awesome work that you're doing. And I'll definitely reach out. I know I'm not ending, but like I'll definitely reach out to connect more with you all because I love youth and equity work. It's what I live for. And so I'm very excited just to be in this room with you.
Stacy, are you here?
I am. Hello. I'm Stacy Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of La Paz Chattanooga, and we are a nonprofit in Chattanooga, Tennessee, working for the Latinx community. We provide social services, direct services, also a lot of engagement and educational activities, as well as consulting for organizations and businesses trying to reach the Latinx community. We have, everything has shifted, but our focus really from the beginning of this was just to ensure that the Latinx community had equitable access and access and information, access to resources. I cannot even talk today. Access to information and resources. And our workload, honestly, is greater than it's ever been before. We are working virtually, but our calls and the need in the community is very, very great right now. We also had a tornado about 4 weeks ago. So we had COVID, and then when we kind of started to breathe a little bit, we had the tornado. So we are working with victims of COVID-19 as well as victims of a tornado. We had about 50 families, 50 Latinx families that were victims of the tornado. So we've been working really hard with them as well, with a lot of legal issues and things like that. My team has been amazing. Just the shift in taking some of the engagement activities, such as we had cafecitos, we have small groups of women that come together, and we've shifted all of those virtually. We've done a lot of interviews, and we've been on the radio, the Spanish radio, every day, bringing speakers from the health department and things like that. Again, really just trying to make sure that the Latinx community has all of the information that everyone else has. And that's really working with the school system, as you know, Jill Levine will talk more about, but working with the school system, working with the city, working with the county, the chamber, anyone and everyone that is giving out information. We have been screaming at the top of our lungs to make sure that the Latino community has the same information. And that means that we may have to translate. That means that we may have to interpret. But we are doing so free of charge for the last 2 months, just because it is so important that the community get this information. So that has just been an extra workload on top of everything else. And I think, you know, everything that everyone has said, the inequities have been magnified. The amount of need has been amplified. Someone said something about worrying about staff, and I'm a mom, we have many moms on our team, and it's a really challenging time. But I think one of the roses is that we have seen Chattanooga nonprofits, corporations, philanthropic entities come together around the need, and a large percentage of the Chattanooga community get it, and they're behind us as well as behind the community, and that's really been kind of amazing to see. So I can talk all day long, but I'll let others talk. But it's I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for including me.
Am I next? I think I might be. Okay, I was waiting to be called on. Well, I'm really happy to be here as well. And Stacy, nice to see you in person. I was thinking as everyone was talking about the 6 degrees of separation, some of you probably remember that from years ago when it was talked about a lot, but Meredith, I started my career as a teacher in New Orleans through Teach for America back in 1992. And spent a lot of time the last few years bringing Teach for America to Chattanooga. So we have our first core here this year. So we're very, very excited about that. And it's been interesting. Oh, I see you're a 92 alum as well. Is that in the chat? Or you're saying I am? Yeah.
I was just shouting you out.
And Hillary, I'm going to be connected because I'm going to start watching your Facebook Lives. That was me asking that question. Just to hear things from someone who knows something about the medical profession and is writing and is sharing information would probably be a lot better than, you know, watching CNN to get my information or, you know, whatever. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we have an epidemiologist every week. She's MD, MPH, PhD, a former head of the American Public Health Association.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to be your new connection on there. Yay. And I don't know where Daniel went, but oh my gosh, like, do you sleep? Because it's just amazing all the things that you do. So my name's Jill Levine. I live now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Been here for quite a while as a teacher and then principal, and spent some time working for Arnie Duncan at the U.S. Department of Ed a few years back as well. And then have worked at our district office as an assistant superintendent, currently the chief of innovation and choice. So prior to COVID, my job was to accelerate innovation in our school district and to expand school choice options for families. I also have a branch of my office that does community outreach. So we have lots of, and development, so lots of arms of our office. So since COVID, we've had lots of different kind of aspects of work taking place. And as Stacy mentioned, we had a tornado on Easter Sunday that was quite devastating. So we were kind of like in COVID mode, and I think kind of dealing and addressing a lot of issues. And then this tornado was completely unexpected and came in and destroyed about 1,200 homes. And I think it's not just the homes that were destroyed, but the kids that are probably traumatized extensively that we're not reaching as well as we should. So one of the things there that we did is stood up a relief center, and I spent a couple weeks just there running that and hearing people's stories as they pulled through. And it was like people just, there were donations, and this is my rose, is that as many donations were being dropped off as people were picking things up. And there were 2 lines and all this traffic. And it was kind of amazing to see how many people were kind of just going out of their comfort zones of quarantine to go and get things to help others. But then to hear the stories as people pulled through were quite devastating. So that's been one piece, but big chunk of the work has been transitioning a district of 45,000 kids to virtual learning, and teachers to virtual learning, and then of course parents to virtual learning. And you know, the inequity there, when some parents can spend the time homeschooling or have kind of the knowledge base to do it, and others are still working multiple jobs, or you know, for whatever reason aren't able to, or grandparents, as someone mentioned, or in Stacy's case, you know, kids that are living with distant relatives. It's been quite a challenge, and there's definitely just a continuum of experience and just vast inequity. We realized that about 25% of our kids didn't have wireless access. We worked with our local electric power board, because we're in a city that has the fastest internet in the world, believe it or not, in Chattanooga. And we stood up 26 additional drive-up Wi-Fi spots, started out with a lot of, with the Chattanooga Housing Authority, worked very closely with them to add Wi-Fi spots there. And it actually was kind of gratifying after the tornado hit, because a lot of people called me and said, I'm at one of the Wi-Fi spots that were set up, you know, for COVID, but we felt like it met another need. So a lot of work on that, a lot of work on getting more devices for kids, literally like emptying every Chromebook out of our schools, from Chromebook carts that were in classrooms and things, and just like throwing them out to kids in the community to try to make sure everybody had access one way or the other. And then a lot of work around communication. We stood up a television show. PBS gave us airtime, primetime airtime every Monday. So we did a live TV show that also had a phone bank, so people could call in with their questions or concerns, and our superintendent was on it every week. We had other people giving updates. We also stood up a English speaking and Spanish speaking hotline. Those are still running every day so that we could address concerns as they came in, and just pushed a lot of communication out through newsletters. And then another big chunk of our work has been feeding, and the food. My concerns about kids going hungry, it's like just gone through the roof, you know. And what I realized, I spent a couple weeks just managing food distribution at one of our school sites, and it was like 13,000 meals going out a day. The logistics of that are just unbelievable, and mostly dependent on volunteers who would do it once, but it was such heavy lifting to lift all these big boxes onto school buses to deliver. It's just that there were so many struggles. Just keeping that going for a long period of time is really tough. So I worry a lot about the summer and what that's going to mean for kids. And then lastly, we also had a huge issue with PPE locally. Our hospitals and ER doctors and nurses saying they had nothing, and they were, just like you hear in the news, like they were asked to wear a mask for 5 to 7 days. And so we collected all of the 3D printers in our school district and assembled a big 3D printing farm at one of our schools, and very quickly produced several thousand face shields, have now produced 7,000 face shields for medical personnel, and even have mailed some to Mozambique. They're on their way. Apparently the doctors are very anxious, but locally have provided lots of medical personnel. And I feel like that's been maybe a little bit of the reason that cases haven't spread as much as they have in other places here, that we've been able to help that way. So all kinds of things going on in our district, and now we're trying to figure out, how do we reopen school? When do we reopen school? Do we reopen school? You know, what's that going to mean, and what's that going to look like? So lots more questions than answers right now.
I vote yes, we open school.
I know you want to get your kids out of the house.
Yes.
I hear you.
Man, y'all, I feel like I am so inspired and kind of tired listening to you guys. Like, there is a lot of hard work going on just by the people on this call. I think this is super helpful just to gain perspective of, you know, like, I think we get focused on what is on our own plate, and it's good to hear what's on everybody else's plate too. So my name is Ginger Spickler. I'm sorry, I'm on the flight path to Memphis International, so if you hear planes, I'll just try to talk over it. But I am a co-founder and chief of staff of Crosstown High, which is in Memphis, Tennessee, a new ish. As we just finished our second year of school ever. So we have 9th and 10th graders, 277 of them, and we'll be adding, another couple of grades in the coming couple of years. I do feel like, in so many ways we have been fortunate just because the scope of our problems is smaller. It's not 45,000 kids in a district. It is, our 277 kids. But, they weigh on your heart just as much as I think a large number. I think the thorn, I'll start with the bad and then move to the good, but the thorn, at least for me personally, and related to our kids and our work, is just really thinking about our teenagers' mental health. The learning, it's important, and we got to figure out how to make up some lost time, but the mental health stuff is just really hard, and it's hard to figure out. And teenagers especially, man, they are just wired to need to be together and want to be together, and they don't get that right now. And we're trying to provide that via Zoom, but it's obviously not the same thing. And so, yes, there are tons of issues with food and Wi-Fi access and all of these things. But I think the thing that weighs on me most is just like, and now, we've been at least connected with them for the past couple of months through school, and trying to figure out how we can kind of maintain some of those ties over the summer. But I just think about them, over the next 3 months. 3 months is a really long time before hopefully school comes back into session and we get to be consistently connected with them again. But we've been spending time trying to help them think through, how do I, as Hillary said, practice self-care during these next few months. That is my biggest concern right now. I think the rows, our school was founded as a response to something called the XQ Super School Challenge. I don't know if that's on anybody's radar, but it was a design challenge put out into the world to rethink high school. And so for the past 5 years, we have been trying to figure out, what does a high school look like that is truly responsive to student needs in this day and age. And so, we launched as a diverse by design, project-based, competency-based, relationship-focused high school. A lot of that is very counter to what our, public overlords, the district and the state and just kind of the national education system want us to do. But all of a sudden, a lot of these things that have been kind of handcuffs have been lifted, very rigid schedules, state testing, grades even. And so it was all of a sudden we had this opportunity to say, okay, how do we engage kids when we don't have to worry about all these things? And we've seen some really exciting results of, being able to do things differently. And certain kids just really, who haven't succeeded even in our very different in-person environment, really succeeding because they're getting to do things that are meaningful and relevant to their lives and interesting to them, and getting more one-on-one attention. And anyway, so I just think we've while it was taxing in some ways to have to reinvent again, rethink again for the last 2 months of school, it's what we've been doing for the past few years anyway. And so it was kind of exciting to get to say, all right, these things are gone. What can we do? And we've seen some kids do some just really remarkable things. So I'll stop and pass it on to Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Violant Sanchez. I was listed as vice chair of the school board. I was the vice chair of the school board in Arlington Public Schools and chair, but I retired from the school board and the school system after 40 years, not of being school board member, but being supervisor for programs for English language learners. Currently, my time and my volunteerism is with the DREAM Project. I am the founder of this small nonprofit. The DREAM Project empowers undocumented youth to access higher education. So we provide scholarships, currently 100 renewable scholarships, mentoring for seniors in high school, and family engagement and advocacy. The rose this year was the access to in-state tuition to undocumented students, or to any student regardless of their immigration status in Virginia who have graduated from high school. The rest are thorns, because as many of you can understand what's going on with the undocumented immigrant community. They have lost their jobs. They have no access to unemployment. They have no access to social services. Many of them, they don't have access to health services because of health insurance. So as a result, our work with these 300 more or less families was, again, we were going to celebrate college graduation for 33 of our students and 100 scholarships, but suddenly we had to change gears and we started an emergency fund. Fortunately, we raised about $40,000 and we started with an emergency fund. It's grants, an application from our students, and we have been bombarded by them. So we have been providing some cash assistance for immediate needs up to $1,000, and now we are increasing up to $1,500. But working with nonprofits to access food. Problems with food has been major. And even advocating with our school system, because first they started, for example, a major barrier, providing free and reduced lunch and breakfasts in 2 schools. So how would low-income families have to travel to 2 schools from 11 to 1 to pick up, free and reduced lunch? And so we had to start advocating for access to free and reduced lunch in schools that are closer to where the low-income families live. So we were able to expand to 9 schools. So it's almost like an ongoing battle to deal with access, support, emergency to the undocumented community, families, because they have been working. They have been before in restaurants, in taking care of children, washing dishes, cleaning houses, and suddenly that stopped. And so this has impacted our college students, because in the past they were also helping their families. So we are advocating, and I ask all of you to continue to advocate, especially for those who have been left out from all this emergency access, which includes the undocumented community. So we are advocating at the local level, at the local government. We're collaborating with nonprofits, because they have been sort of the nonprofit organizations that have helped, like with food, with assistance to rent. But really, the major problem, we have students and families with the coronavirus, and they don't have health insurance. So some families stay at home, but then they, infect all the other ones. So we are advocating again for, some of our students ask for emergency fund to get tested for COVID. So, it is very, very hard to face on a daily basis the need of the undocumented immigrant population, our youth, the children in our schools, and also the families. So I just ask for, in your advocacy and support, to please keep this population in mind. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Emma, and sorry for getting your title incorrect. Honestly, I'm kind of starstruck and just inspired and grateful for all of your work. I think we only have about 10 or 12 more minutes left. So Emma began to touch on this, but I guess Rachel and I would like to ask on behalf of TomTom, what are the next steps? How can community members get involved? And what are the, creative ways that you would say that we might be able to address some of these issues, the equity gaps and other things that you're seeing?
I think one is advocacy, because many of you are, really advocates for low income people of color, and the immigrant population advocacy at all levels, state, local, federal, nonprofit organizations that can open their services to the undocumented. Three, of course, I wouldn't say that I am the chair and the founder of the DREAM Project if I wouldn't tell you support to the DREAM Project, because we had to move from providing funding for scholarships to providing funding for food, shelter, and health insurance. And it is really how the racism that exists and the institutional barriers that exist for within our institution, somehow this population is invisible. So, or just immigrants in general, or people that do not speak English. So for example, we had a teacher who worked until the last day in March 27th. And then the next week she has COVID. Now she helped and worked with English language learners. Were the families informed? Was there contact tracing? No. So even the impact of a teacher or anybody that, the coronavirus impacts the students and the families. So, and the advocacy that it took for me to work with the school board, with the county board, with the Department of Human Services, to really focus on how to assist the families that you are in contact with this teacher. As simple as that. But moving the school boards to change as far as how they distribute food for low-income families, it's like, uphill battle. And that's where I think all of us need to work for them.
Yeah, I think the situation is forcing all of us to really find our voice. Now is the time to, as Hillary put it, we got to name it. If it's racism, we need to name it and be very unequivocal about the systems that have that give us our jobs. It's kind of the sad reality, like we're all in business because the systems all suck. And it's time now for us to say it with boldness, and also come up with new ways to address these problems. The reason why we're stuck in some of these spaces is because the old ways of doing business, both in the nonprofit space and in the funding space, aren't effective. And we need to state that, and we need to come up with some novel solutions, right, in the midst of this novel virus. And shake things up a little bit.
I think the only thing I would add to that is, while we're considering race, that we have to invite in a conversation about class in tandem with race conversations. I think in this moment, and I've been reflecting on this a lot, there are multi-generational, multi-class, multi-status families that are having a really hard time dealing with the intricacies of all those things existing at once. Families where some people are documented, some people are not. Some people have access to healthcare, some people do not. And because our children are home, they are seeing this all play out in real time. And so I would invite us to consider the multitudes and not dismiss one over the other because one is more convenient to deal with in the moment. And I think our organizations are being forced to reckon with that. In my position, even among our staff. So we have staff members who make more money than others. And what does that mean in an environment where we need to cut costs? Everybody can't afford to take a pay cut. And so who does in this moment? And I would invite us all to think through that within our organizations.
Can I jump on top of that?
Sorry.
Yeah. Since I don't work in education full-time in the way that you all did, yesterday I called one of my coaching clients who's very high-ranking in a school system, and she spoke to some of the issues that you're talking about. And so she said, even though it's counterintuitive, the thing that she would want people to know that now is the time to really invest in executive coaching, equity training, and leadership development, so that people have the skills and the language and have built relationships to make these difficult types of decisions, whether it's who gets cut or who does not, which I'm in Philadelphia. They're dealing with this right now. Same thing with hotspots. You were talking about hotspots earlier. You know, the neediest students who gets access to resources, and to be able to have those conversations among themselves. So what she wanted me to talk about was to raise the importance of mental health services for leaders and for educators, and to create a through line through the system, was what she wanted me to.
I was going to suggest, as far as for next steps from y'all at TomTom, I've really enjoyed hearing everybody speak today. It's been really inspiring. I think that we could all do a lot of great collaboration together. I think that if there is an opportunity to do a follow-up session like this, that if we could do breakout rooms on specific topics, like maybe one time we're focusing on systems change, and we've got different breakout rooms where we're taking different parts of systems change that we want to talk about mental health, we want to talk about race and class, we want to talk about these larger topics. And then we have another session where we're focusing on more day-to-day, like I know we are focusing on our food distribution programs, but I'm concerned about that, as you know, these kids are getting meals, but they're going towards their whole family, and I'm worried about food rationing whenever they've got 8 kids at home. How are we properly getting meals to them? I want to focus on how are they getting the meals. Well, public transportation, we have it, but for us, it's very limited right now. It's hard for them to get there, but also they're not able to talk to a social worker to tell them if they're experiencing anything at home, that, you know, if there is possible abuse in the home or anything like that. Some of these day-to-day things that I think we're all thinking about, and I would love to be able to hear how you guys are addressing that and what you found successful. Like I said, if there's an opportunity for future sessions, I would love that.
Great. Well, thanks, Meredith. I think those are fantastic ideas, and we'd love to pursue that. You know, to give people space for likely 2 p.m. meetings, I think maybe we can just adjourn there.